Hi, I'm Dr. Dawn Elfenbein. I'm a surgeon at UC Irvine School of Medicine, and today we're going to talk about how to get ready to go into the operating room, how to don all the proper attire, how to scrub your hands, and then put on sterile gown and gloves, which is what we do before every operation. Okay, we're going to get started. I am now outside of an operating room as if I'm going to go in and do an operation. So there are certain things I have to do before I can go into the operating room in the sterile environment. The first thing I do is change into a pair of scrubs like I have right here. And then there are things that you have to do before every operation, like inspect your hands and make sure you don't have any open wounds on your hands, which I do not. You have to take off any jewelry or watches that you're wearing. You can't have any jewelry or watches, anything up to your elbows on either side. So find a secure place to put any jewelry that you have. Remember that you have those later when you take off your scrubs. If you have long hair, you have to pull your hair back, so I'll start with doing that. You have to secure it in some fashion. And then there's protective items that you have to wear, like a mask with an eye shield and a hat. So this hat right here that we have is something that we use to cover all of our hair, prevent any hair from shedding and falling onto the sterile surgical field. So you have to make sure your hat is on, covering your ears so that it makes sure it gets any hair in front of your ears, and covering all the hair behind your head. And then a surgical mask you have to wear. To wear this whenever you're in the presence of a sterile surgical field. So if there's open surgical instruments, you would put this on. And you start by pinching the mask over your nose, taking one set of ties and tying them loosely over the crown of your head. And the second tie, you're going to pull down and tie loosely behind your neck here. If you tie these too tight, it's going to be pretty uncomfortable. You can stretch the mask out over your nose and mouth. Make sure it's covering your nose and pulled down all the way underneath your chin. So now I'm ready to go scrub my hands, but the next thing I'm going to do is open up my sterile gown and sterile gloves, because once I scrub my hands and come out, I can't touch some of this material anymore because my hands will be sterile. So what I'm going to do is open up, this is a sterile gown that we have. I'm going to open this up and pull out the wrapped sterile gown. You're going to discard the outer covering, and you're going to place the sterile gown in front of you, so that the pull tab is facing up. You're going to then open the sterile gown in front of you. So I'm going to take this first pull tab and pull it down. The next tab is going to go out and to the left side. And you can see I'm still holding on to the lower pull tab, and I'm going to stretch this out. I'm only touching the corners of this blue material, because what I'm doing is I'm creating a surgical sterile field in front of me. This blue in front of me is sterile, and I don't want to touch the gown with my dirty hands right now. So this is how I set up my gown. I'm going to then come over and grab my gloves. These are sterile gloves. And I don't want to touch even the paper of these sterile gloves, because I'm going to put this on top of my surgical gown. And everything on that blue is sterile. So I'm going to open up the gloves away from the surgical field. And then I'm going to come over on top of the surgical field and dump them on top of the gloves. And discard this outer shell. So now my table is ready for me to come back after I scrub to put on my sterile gown and sterile gloves. Right now I'm going to go scrub my hands, and then we'll come back to this place. Okay, here we are at the scrub sink. I'm ready to wash my hands so that I can put on my sterile gown and gloves and perform an operation. When you come over to the scrub sink, double check, make sure you have your hat on, make sure you have your eye protection on. People always forget to put on eye protection. And then choose your soap. There's often several different kinds of soap at any OR scrub sink. What we have right now is chlorhexidine scrub. I'm going to take that soap and open the package. Inside the package you'll see that there is a scrub brush that already has soap all over it. Sometimes this soap gets stuck on one sort of corner of the package, so you just want to make sure you get all the soap onto the scrub brush. Throw the scrub brush wrapper away, and you have a nail pick on the inside of the scrub brush. Take that out. You want to start by getting the scrub sink to turn on. This is an automatic sink. Some of them have a push button with your knee, but this one's automatic. So right now I just want to get my hands all wet. So hands wet all the way up to the elbow. And I'm just holding on to this sponge right here. The first step of any scrub is to actually clean on the underside of all of your nails. So I'm going to really get this nail pick in and get underneath every single one of my fingernails. Get any dirt that has been accumulating under there out. And then run that pick under some running water. Make sure you're really doing a good cleaning of all of your fingernails. The entire process of scrubbing your hands takes about 5 minutes, so it's much more extensive than just a plain old washing of your hands. So now I've gotten underneath all my fingernails, I can throw this nail pick away. The idea of scrubbing your hands is that you want all the bacteria that is on your skin, you want to scrub the dirtiest parts first, so the dirtiest parts are your fingernails, and then you want all that bacteria to run backwards off of your elbow. So you often see people on TV going like this after they scrub. It's so that any water is not dripping back onto your hands, it's dripping off of your elbows. So the first part, again, getting this nice and wet, usually just rub the sponge around in my hands a couple times to get a nice lather going. So now that I have a nice lather on my hands, I want to get my fingernails again. So I've already gotten them with the pick, but now I want to get them with this scrub. So with the brush part of the scrub brush, you want to get all 5 of your fingernails on one hand and just scrub. And do a good 30 scrubs back and forth on those fingernails. And again, just one time getting underneath all those fingernails, getting the dirtiest part of your hands. This is where bacteria can really accumulate. So a good 30 seconds or so on that hand. Then I switch to my other hand and get those fingernails again. I do this the same every time because it becomes routine. So a good 30 seconds on those fingernails. Really making sure you get your thumb, all 5 of your fingers, getting into those fingernails. You then switch, and it doesn't matter what hand you start with, but again, my routine is to start with my left hand. I'll take again the brush side of this scrub brush, and you want to think of your hand and each of your fingers as having 4 sides. And you want to scrub every single side of your finger and the space in between your fingers very, very well. So I'll demonstrate it with my thumb and then I'll show you faster with other ones. So if I imagine my thumb has 1, 2, 3, 4 sides to it, I'm going to start with one of the sides, and I typically start with the back of my thumb. And I scrub the back of my thumb 10 times with the scrub brush. And then I scrub the front of my thumb 10 times with the scrub brush. Then I get the outside of my thumb 10 times with the scrub brush, inside of my thumb 10 times with the scrub brush. You now have to do that with every single one of your fingers. So again, now my index finger, getting the outside, getting the inside, getting the side of my finger, and then this side of my finger. And each time I'm going down, I'm really making sure that I'm getting all the way down into the webbing of these fingers. Same with every single other finger. And 10 strokes on each of those sides. You can imagine this takes a long time. I find it's very meditative to do this before a case, so really starts thinking about what you're about to do and the seriousness of surgery. Now that I've gotten all my fingers on my right hand, I usually will also do the same thing. I'll make sure that I get the palm of my hand very, very well. Back and forth 10 times or so with that hand. And then the outer surface of my hand the same way. So now I've completely scrubbed my left hand. Now I'm going to repeat that process with my right hand. So now I turn the scrub brush around. I'm going to start getting my thumb, my right hand, and 10 times on every surface. Eight fingers down, 2 to go. And last finger here. Now I'm going to get again the palm of my right hand. Scrubbing back and forth across the palm, and then the back side of my left hand, or my right hand, excuse me. Now that I've accomplished that, my hands are very clean. So now I'm going to wipe the rest of my arms as well. The hands being clean is the most important part of this scrub. Now, it doesn't matter if you use the brush or the sponge part for this part. I typically go to the sponge. But now I'm going to wash my hand. And imagine your arm is the same way, that it has 4 different sides. But what I typically do is divide my arm into thirds. The third that's closest to my wrist, the third that's in the middle, and the third that's closest to my elbow. And I do my 10 scrubs on the third that's closest to my elbow first. And this is the part that's closest to my hand. And then I switch hands. and I go to this side. 10 scrubs on the inside of my wrist, 10 scrubs on the outside of my wrist, 10 scrubs on each side. I'm really cleaning, again, from my hands to my elbows, kind of pushing bacteria back. I then go to the middle of this arm and do 10 scrubs all the way through on the middle of the arm. And same thing now, switching, going back to the right side. And then the last is getting soap and scrub all the way to your elbow on both arms. Now be really careful. You notice my hand almost touched the shelf when I was doing that. If you're not completely aware of all the things that are around you, you can contaminate yourself. And if I touch the scrub sink right now, or I touch the shelf up there, I've undone everything that I've already scrubbed. You got to start over from the beginning. So now that I've scrubbed all my hands all the way up to my elbows, I take this and throw it away. Go back to the water, turn the water on, and you kind of bend down. I'm very tall, so I have to bend down and do this. So you want water to run from your fingertips down your arm. You can never put your hand downwards in the sink and let water drip off your fingertips. You want the water to always be dripping off your elbow. Again, take this elbow, make sure you're not going to get it contaminated by touching anything. Rinse your other elbow. And now my hands are completely rinsed. I'm ready to go dry and put on my sterile gown and gloves. Okay, now that I've washed my hands, you have to be, again, very careful to not touch anything or contaminate anything. And you're going to stand in this fashion. You kind of have to put your butt out and your hands forward with your elbows above your waist. You can see that I'm dripping water off my elbows. That's okay. It happens all the time in the operating room. You can't touch anything. So you just let the water drip off your elbows. Head towards the door to the operating room. And the door to the operating room, you can't just reach down and grab the handle. You have to open the door to the operating room with another part of your body. So you can usually just use your hips or your backside, open the door, and slide yourself through into the operating room. And then we'll go get our sterile gown and gloves. So now I'm walking into the operating room with my arms still out in front of me, my elbows up above my waist, and any water that's dripping is dripping down off of my elbows, not on my hands. Not putting my hands together or touching anything else. The first thing you have to do to put on your sterile gown and gloves is you have to dry your hands now that you've washed with water. So each sterile gown comes with a drying towel. So you need to use your hands. Hopefully you're not actively dripping anymore, but you want to grab your sterile towel off of your gown. Try not to drip all over your gown, and then open the towel in front of you. Again, making sure you're not touching anything else, so I'm not touching the table or anything. Think of the towel as having two halves, the top half and the bottom half. And I'm going to use the top half to dry one of my hands. Doesn't matter which hand you start with, but again, do it the same every time. And you want to dry each finger, the palm side of your hand, the back side of your hand, and then one last swipe where you dry down your arm to the elbow, but not going past it, and making sure the towel again is not touching you or the table. You're going to then take the towel, flip it over onto the opposite hand, and dry your other hand using the clean half of the towel that you haven't already used. Now dry all the way down to your elbow. Just one swipe. You don't want to swipe up and down because you're dragging bacteria back up then, so you just want to only swipe down. And then throw that towel away. Keeping your hands from touching anything, you now want to grab your sterile gown. So don't touch the gloves in there, just grab the gown itself. And lift the gown out in front of you. You have to try to figure out which direction the gown is. The gown is folded in half. So the area that unfolds is going to go away from you. The area that is kind of a curved yellow band, that's the neck or the collar of the gown, so you want that facing towards you. There's little flaps here. I'm going to put one hand in this flap, the other hand in this flap, and then I'm going to actually stand back away from the table in front of me so I don't hit anything. But this gown is going to unfold in front of me as I open my arms here. And then my hands just go into the gown in this fashion. If there's someone in the room to help you, they can secure your gown behind you with the Velcro. But if there's no one in the room to help you, it's okay. You don't have to have it secured to do the next step right here. You notice that I didn't put my hands all the way through the collar or the wristbands of this gown. I'm keeping it so that my hands are still inside the blue. Because right now I want my hands, even though they're clean, they're not sterile, but this gown is sterile. I don't want my hands or my skin touching anything. I'm now going to take my gloves, and I'm going to open my gloves in front of me. So I flip the gloves so that the paper I can unfold directly in front of me. There's a right side and a left side glove. I'm going to open the gloves on the table in front of me with my hands inside the sleeve of this gown. Now it looks a little silly to be doing that, but it's just what we do to maintain sterility. I'm now going to glove my right hand first. I realize now I did everything else my left hand first, but when I put my gloves on, it's my right hand first. So my right hand, I'm actually going to sneak my first 3 fingers, just the very tips of the fingers, outside of the wristband of this gown. My left hand is still completely covered back in the blue. I'm going to then take the right glove, and on this glove, you notice you have to look really closely, but you'll see that there's some writing on the glove. It tells you the size of the glove and the type of the glove that it is. I'm going to take the writing side of the glove and place it writing side down on my palm of my right hand with the fingers facing towards my heart, basically, right? Fingers facing towards me and the writing side down. That's going to ensure the glove is going to go on in the proper way. I'm going to then take my right hand, these 3 fingers that I sort of snuck out, and I'm actually going to put them slightly inside the glove. I'm going to work my way in so that my fingers get inside the glove, sort of starting to put the glove on. So you can see now this is what this glove looks like. And I'm able to pinch that down, pinch my fingers down to the palm of my hand so that that glove is now held in place. I'm going to then take my left hand and grab the cuff of this glove that's facing me. You can see my fingers, my skin is covered there, so it's not touching anything and I'm not contaminating anything. I'm just going to grab the cuff of this glove and flip it around. This one's a little sticky, and sometimes that happens. I'm going to flip this over to the back side, which now my hand is now inside the glove, although my fingers are not in the right place yet. But I can use my left hand to sort of stretch things out, put my fingers in the right place, pull back the sleeve here, and just work my fingers into the fingers of this glove. Then you can pull this back. Notice when the glove is on, this is a little strange too. This is not how you wear normal clothes, but you really want the cuff of this glove to be covering the palm of your hand. If the cuff of the glove is where you would normally expect a sleeve to end at your wrist, what happens is that white can sneak out the backside of your glove, and that white is going to get contaminated with sweat and just with touching your skin. So if white is showing beyond your glove, you're considered to be contaminated. You're not sterile anymore. So you really want that white cuff of the gown to be far forward on your hand. It feels a little strange when you start, but trust me, when you've been doing surgery a long time, it feels strange when the cuff is back on your wrist. Now that I have this hand completely covered and this hand is sterile, the second glove is really easy. So now I can actually kind of sneak my left-sided fingers out, use my right hand to pick up the left glove. I tend to just slide my fingers inside the cuff and just pick this glove up. So now I can just very easily slip my hand into the left-sided glove and pull it on. Again, kind of tugging back on the sleeve so that the cuff of the gown is comfortable, but again on the surface of my hands. Now at this point, you can't touch anything behind you, so you do need an assistant right now to tie up the back of your gown. And then the very last thing you do is you do a second tie, which we'll demonstrate in a second, where you kind of have to spin around to completely tie the rest of your gown. So now I've had an assistant tie up the back of my gown, and I'm going to show you the very last step before you go into the operating room. If you notice the back of my gown is still open, you can see my scrubs. The last thing we have to do is close that opening in the back. So I'm going to hold this colored tab in my hand, and I'm going to hold the tab and the right side, the right string in my right hand, and I'm just going to hold the short end, the short string in my left hand. I'm going to pull that short string off of the tab, right? So now I'm just holding my left hand has the string that I'm going to tie, and in my right hand I have the long strand attached to this color tab. I'm going to hand this tab to an assistant who will hold on to that. The assistant doesn't move. You do all the work at this moment. So now I'm going to spin around, and I'm going to re-grab, but I'm not going to re-grab the cardboard. I'm going to re-grab the tab. The assistant continues to hold on to the tab, and then I just tie a nice little bow here. And I am now completely sterile and ready to start an operation.
Thanks for watching this video. Do you want to learn more or become certified in this skill? Just visit us at SimRated.com. Be sure to check out our other videos.